I think there's always a visual hook line in a great photograph. Great photographs have something that reach out and grab you instantly. I can relate that to music. I know when we used to write songs, a great tune always had a hook line to it. I think both photography and music are a great deal alike. One is just oral, the other is visual. Newspapers are a great way to get started in photography. I think working as a daily newspaper photojournalist at a major daily in the United States can get you involved in every facet of photography. It teaches you a lot about life, it teaches you a lot about people in general, and I really enjoy dealing with people. And you would photograph people in every conceivable situation. No 2 days are ever alike at a newspaper. You never know what you're going to be doing. You come in and you get your pile of assignments, and then you go out and you do them. And you might have feature photography to do, dealing with people and or animals. You might have sports assignments, and they run the gamut from baseball, football, soccer, to donkey basketball. I think to some degree the better photographers that get the more stunning images in news situations in particular are those photographers that do feel a degree of safety behind a camera. I always likened it to tunnel vision. When something happened in front of me, I would just home in on what it was. I tried to keep my peripheral vision working because your safety depends on it in a lot of cases. But I think in general, you have to be rather fearless to go out and cover plane crashes or tornadoes or hurricanes. I've covered every conceivable type of nasty disaster that I can think of, short of going over the volcano in the Pacific Northwest when it was erupting. That I have not done that, but pretty much everything else I've had a hand in. And yes, you do need to be fearless.
There's two types of assignments for the news photographer, hard news and features. Red Morgan prefers the feature work. While working in New York in 1971, Morgan shot one of his favorite feature photos, which went on to win first place in the New York State Associated Press photo competition. It was the first time a feature picture had won that competition.
I had gone to this particular location in a park, Davenport Park in New Rochelle, New York, for 5 days running. I had found this location I thought was wonderful. It had everything that I saw as beauty, and I wanted to create an image in this location. And I photographed this particular location with the tree and the landscape 5 straight days in a row. I photographed it in every conceivable situation except snow. I photographed it in fog, rain, sunshine, mist, you name it, I photographed it. I photographed it with birds flying through. I photographed it with low angles, wide angles, telephotos. I photographed it 6-way to Sunday because I knew innately it was a fine picture. It compelled me to photograph it. But by the 5th day, I was really torqued. I had spent an entire week working on it 2-3 hours at a time, and you know, I think about that now. I don't think I could ever put that kind of time into something these days, but back then it was terrific. And I was waiting for something to happen, and nothing ever happened. And at the end of the 5th day, I was leaving in utter disgust. I jumped into my company car, and I was backing out, and a girl and her black Labrador Retriever came pulling in a Volkswagen convertible. They parked, they hopped out of their car and ran down right to my location, as if I had told them just where to go. And I said, "This is it. Here comes the manna. Heaven's opening." I chased them down the hill. I didn't say a word to them, and I was shooting with a 180 and a motor drive, and I took probably 12 or 14 images, all of which were very good pictures. I just framed it naturally. I already knew what lens I would need to frame it with, having spent 5 days in a row there. And there was something magical about one frame. This black Labrador Retriever, I was photographing in black and white, of course, and this black lab jumped above the horizon. He was just playing with her, and she had her arm outstretched, and he has his mouth open like he's fixing to just bite her hand. And the neat thing was the wind was blowing slightly, and it blew her hair in front of her face, so she's faceless, and I saw it as a very surreal image. When I saw the negative on the light table, I just about fell over, and I knew that I had something really different. And that's what I was striving to do. That was such a special place and a special time. I wanted a special image, and I lucked up and I got it because of my diligence, but I think luck played a great part in it. There's a picture I call Take That I discovered on my way to lunch one day. working for the newspaper. I was passing a laundromat and I saw two children, a little brother and sister, sitting in a chair, sharing a chair together, and their mother was inside washing their clothes, and I was out just shooting cute kid pictures down on my hands and knees to be on their eye level, and she said something to him and he hauled off and knocked her in the face, gave her a good shot, and once again I just pushed the button at the right time. I had always known I wanted to freelance ultimately. I spent many years working for newspapers, all good years. It was great training. About 5 years before I left my newspaper job, I began to freelance, and I went out into the community and I talked to people, and I would get jobs from time to time, usually sports-oriented jobs, because that was what everybody thought that I did, was shoot sports only, and it led from one thing to another, and I picked up a handful of accounts, maybe 4 or 5, and that was all I could deal with working full-time, a 40-hour week for newspapers. But as time went on, I slowly expanded, and it got to be very difficult because I would be working 40 hours a week for a newspaper, and then if I had a 1 or 2 day shoot freelance, I would either have to try to time it on my days off or take comp time or vacation time. And I worked in a fairly small office, so it got to be a bit of a problem, but I stuck with it. In the last 2 years, it got to be a big chore because I was working so much for the newspaper, but then I was working almost as much for myself. But I felt it was the only sane way to get involved in freelance. There are a lot of people that I know and admire that just quit their jobs and they go to work freelance. And I didn't feel I could do that. It was just my own personal motivation. I knew that I wanted to have a substantial amount of clients before I just up and quit. And I guess the last 2 years I worked for the newspaper, I really got myself into the position where the freelance income was equaling or surpassing the newspaper income, and the little voice inside me said, it's time to go for it, it's now or never. And my line of logic was, if I didn't succeed, I could always go back to work for newspapers. That would be the worst that could happen, because I'm an optimist. So I took the plunge, and that was about 2.5 years ago, and I've been happy as a pig in mud ever since.